This year is quite a special Smart Geometry, I think, for quite a few reasons. One of the first reasons is that it is the 10th year anniversary of Smart Geometry. It all started 10 years ago, 2002, 2003 roughly, with a few people that were based in academia, in software developers, professionals. They were all working around digital tools within design. But they're all disconnected. So they thought, let's come together and let's have, I can only describe it as a bit of a jam session in digital parametric computational design. They did that for a few days. And after those 4 days, what do you do? Well, you're going to show what you did to each other. So you hook up a few laptops to a projector and show what's going on. And that's actually the core of Smart Geometry. And I hope we actually stay true to that idea, is that it's still a jam session, a bigger one actually, and then after the jam session we actually talk about it and discuss what we have done over those 4 days and what kind of topics we kind of handled. So all of you are here just for the conference here. This is actually not the first day, this is the 5th day of Smart Geometry. There has been a 4-day workshop at the Bartlett, at the Royal Ear Hospital and the Waits House. 4-day workshop, and people have been working really, really hard. And I think you recognize the ones that don't have enough sleep. So if you sit next to someone who's a bit tired, that's probably one person of the workshop. They have been working from 9 in the morning to 12 at night for 4 days. Now, what I would say is also that is by far really the largest conference that we have this year. And it's also, for example, the community has actually grown as well. We just did, yesterday, we posted a video online, and within 2 hours we had 3,000 hits. So it's not just the people that are here, it's actually it became a global community. But that is not that important. It's not the size that always counts here. I think it's the quality. And how do you get quality? Well, in an academic way to get quality is to peer review something. You know, you show it to everybody else and everybody decides what is good and what isn't that good. Well, we are not a peer review conference. What you could say is we are a peer review workshop, right? So we had 10 parallel workshops running over the last 4 days. Each of these workshops were run by a team, and if you want to do a workshop here, you have to apply. And we actually had 68 applications in of teams wanting to come to Smart Geometry and run a workshop. Unfortunately, we were only able to choose the 10 best. So I actually would like to, if people in the audience that kind of handed in applications for workshops and didn't get in, I would like to thank you as well. For doing that, but we had a very tough choice in actually choosing those 10 ones that we thought would actually kind of tackle the ideas of this year's Smart Geometry. And also, people coming to the workshop is also peer-reviewed. We were oversubscribed by 200%. So again, we were only allowing in the 100 best applications for the workshop. And I think that's a way for us to actually keep that quality every year the same and hopefully higher and higher.
I think the representation of the community is quite important for us. We see architects, engineers, people from practice, academia, industry, artists, mathematicians, programmers. You know, those who have been sitting in the workshops for the last couple of days understand that you could have somebody who's an undergraduate in architecture sitting next to somebody who's an associate dean of a school, next to somebody who's a computer programmer from a software company. And then you have an artist, and in this specific case, actually, we had a Spanish stonemason this year, which took part as one of the workshops. You'll get a chance to see some of the work tomorrow as well. It's a really good, diverse community. The intensity is fantastic. I always feel at the end of these events I'm completely exhausted. I don't know how big the bags are under the eyes from the lights that you see here, but the exhaustion is fine. I can take that because I'm also exhilarated by seeing the work that everybody has done. There are some empty seats in the house because I have a feeling a few people might sleep in just a touch, and there might be a few that were sorting out a few things in the workshop, but you're going to get a chance to see all the amazing work that they've done over the last 4 days at tonight's event. Now, we move from city to city. The first events I think we held were back in Cambridge in the UK. We then followed with some affiliations with Acadia out of the US and generally North America by running an event in Cambridge in Canada. Another one in New York City, which was in 2010. In 2008, we moved on to Munich, followed by San Francisco. And then in Barcelona, we started to change the model. We started to change the way that the workshops tended to be structured. We focused around a singular challenge. It wasn't just a room where people were going in purely working with software. Instead, we wanted people making things. We wanted people to get intensely involved in the product, in the iterative process of prototyping. So the event in 2010 was called Working Prototypes, and it was run out of the Institute of Advanced Architecture in Catalonia, and it really began us on this journey. As Xavier said, we had 10 workshops that year, and that's how we've been running the last couple of years, and in each year, the number of people applying to run workshops has increased. For us, that's fantastic. That means these are people who are passionate and are really interested in doing something interesting here, and really working with an amazing group of collaborators. Collaborators is an important word here. This is not people who run a workshop and a bunch of participants. It's not a teacher-student relationship. It's a champion who provides vision and direction for the group and expertise on a particular tool, system development, material, what have you. And then you've got a collection of collaborators who were peer-reviewed to take part in that and make something amazing. Everybody works together to create something cohesive. After 2010, these sort of developments continue. There's always some iterative research and development that happen in these workshops. People who ran something in 2010 come back for 2012 and run another workshop, or take part in somebody else's, or join the organizing committee to run that year's event. This year's our 10th anniversary. It's very important for us. It's a good opportunity for us to reflect and look back on the work that we've done over the last decade. You'll have an opportunity just before lunch to have a quick presentation by Brady Peters, who's going to be talking about the Inside Smart Geometry book. It's an opportunity to look back at the material that's in there, and I think Brady and Terry, who are the editors, refer to it as a retroactive manifesto of some sorts. So you get a chance to see some of the work that's in there as well. These 10th anniversaries, though, don't happen without an amazing group of people to get the job done. We have a number of people who have had their hands in this. You'll have an opportunity to meet Peter, Jose, and Christina during the course of the day, who will be introducing the talk shops. They were the ones that were leads in terms of organizing all the stuff throughout the workshop days. We've got a whole range of people who you'll meet through the course of the next 2 days, and we'll introduce them as they come along. But these sort of things do not come in isolation. We also had great partners with the Bartlett, and we'll have a chance to meet them in just a second as well. Last but not least, we've also had a wonderful partner in Bentley Systems that we've worked with for a number of years. Bentley's been our partner from the very beginning of this event, starting off in the one back in Cambridge. We've worked with them for a very long time in the development and testing and kind of relationship and the development of tools like generative components and other packages that they work with. And they've been here the whole time, sitting in with clusters and working with them. Now, you'll have an opportunity here, a quick little note on the agenda before I move off to one or two other things. The agenda here is we've got 2 days for the conference. We've got the talk shop today, which is a collection of panel sessions. And this evening, you're going to go get a chance to take a look at the workshop. The workshop is an opportunity for you to see what's happened over the last 4 days, talk amongst the people, get a sense, speak with the people who ran these workshops, who built all these wonderful elements that you see throughout the space, and have a couple drinks while walking around doing so. Tomorrow, we'll have the symposium, a collection of keynote speakers, industry and thought leaders from around the world on a variety of different topics, and interspersed throughout the day, presentations by those clusters on the work that they've done. Little last logistical thing here. We do have a big community, and a good way to get a sense of what that community does is to take a look at our website, smartgeometry.org. It'll link you to everything. If you click on the section that says SG Clusters, these were live group working pages over the course of the last few days. Photographs, downloads of original source code files, videos, chatter back and forth about where's a good place to get some curry or something in the city. All that stuff is in there. In addition to that, we're on Facebook and Twitter. The hashtag you're going to see on the back of your little booklet, if anybody wants to send some stuff up there, use it there. We'll be posting it back as well. Last thing from me, do me a favor and silence your phones if you could, so we don't have too much noise in the background. No problem if you want to sit there. This is not like a movie theater. I don't mind you sitting there typing as much as you want and have laptops on. But do me a favor, and I appreciate you silencing your phones. I think it's really important, though, we understand that this sort of thing comes together as a collective community. And we do have a series of partners that we work with.
I think one of the most important partners is always the host organization. And each year we spend a lot of time in actually selecting the next year's host. And I think for this year, it was actually quite interesting to come here in London after 10 years at the Bartlett for a couple of reasons. And actually, one reason is actually a very personal reason for myself. I studied here about a little more than a decade ago, did a master here. And in typical Bartlett style, as a student, I was able to really explore my own agenda. And funnily enough, that agenda back then for me was trying to combine some computation and some programming I've learned in high school with my architecture education. And I came here to try to explore that. And it was really hard, because there were very, very few people actually kind of doing that at that point in time. And for me, it's really amazing now to, after I think about 12, 13 years, standing back here at the Bartlett, with a complete community that has really grown up and embraced that kind of way of working over the last 10 years. But there's another reason why it's really important to the Bartlett, I think, and that's because of Alan Penn. Alan was actually part of the really first discussions with Lars, Hugh, and Jay about bringing a few people together and start that workshop. Alan is a dean here at the Bartlett, and leave it over to you, Alan.
Okay. Well, my job is to say welcome. Welcome to the Bartlett. This isn't the Bartlett, by the way. This is the Institute of Education, but we're very close. Welcome to UCL. UCL is the university to which the Bartlett belongs. I thought it was worth just saying a couple of things. The first is it's great to have Smart Geometry back here. We had a really good lunch at the National Portrait Gallery, I remember, paid for by Lars, I think. That was Jay, Robert, Lars, Hugh, I think that was about it. And the idea was, would this work? Was there time now to bring together people to work on not just CAD systems, those have been around for a long time, not just BIM, that had been around for a long time. It was actually how you get designers to start to think with algorithmic tools in solving problems. And that's something which, at the time, the potential was there, the technology was there, but it was quite clear that there were all sorts of bits of knowledge and understanding at large across the community around the world, and that by bringing it together, there could be something really interesting that would come out of it. Like all good sessions of this sort, what actually happened was we had a prototype. And so there was a weekend, I believe, in the second floor of Waite's house where the computers were given over to probably what would emerge as the first workshop. And that was before the conference. It was interesting. It was something I wasn't involved in. I think Robert ran it. And it's something which I think has set the tone for all the workshops that have happened since. It was genuine collaboration. And I think that's the flavor of what this is all about. Now, this is something that's particularly interesting from UCL's point of view. UCL was founded as the third university after those medieval ones in the marshlands. It was founded on the principles that you were allowed in regardless of creed. It ended up being regardless of creed and gender. It allowed the invention of subjects which weren't just subjects studied in traditional universities. So the first place to do chemistry or engineering and so forth in this country. The first professor of architecture in this country was here in 1841. These subjects became university subjects for the new Enlightenment University. It seems to me that what's going on with smart geometry at the moment is the invention of new disciplinary and subject boundaries. And they work partly in a theoretical way, partly in a social way, and partly technologically. And it's how those things come together that I think you've got a really interesting mix taking place in this whole agenda. I'll talk more about it this morning in the second session. For the moment, just really like to say welcome. You're really welcome to London. and to UCL and to the Bartlett, and we're very glad to host Smart Geometry again. Okay, thank you. Bye. I should have introduced Rory.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Rory Glynn, and on behalf of the Bartlett, I've been heading up the organization of Smart Geometry 2013 over these past sort of 9 or so months. I run a studio at the Bartlett in the Graduate Architectural Design program, and I teach on the Masters in Adaptive Architecture and Computation. On those two programs, I've worked very closely over the past few years with two people in particular, Stephen Gage and Sean Hanna. About a year ago, we had a conversation about a challenge for smart geometry. And I think an initial question that came up for us was, how can geometry be smart when it operates in a varying and sometimes partially unknown condition? And in 2011, with my colleague, Professor Bob Scheel, we organized the Fabricate Conference at the Bartlett, which focused its attention on the integration of digital design with manufacturing processes, and in particular looked at how digital fabrication technologies were enabling new creative design construction opportunities. So one of the key words that came out of that conference was optimization. And one of the questions we've been talking about a lot in the MSc in Adaptive Architecture and Computation is how we can trust the results of optimization, which ultimately only deal with clearly quantifiable phenomena. Often optimization is up there with dealing with some of the most complex tasks when optimizing a problem that relies on a goal that's easily quantifiable. But this often ignores other considerations, particularly, for example, how we optimize for the complexity of human interactions with their environment and with each other. People are pretty tricky to individually predict, so how can we design to be efficient, but yet be robust to the uncertain changes over time, particularly of people, but also other factors like our environment itself? How do we protect the effects of information technologies on individual lives, as well as the operation of whole cities and countries, and how we cope with the unprecedented complexities of urban development, social and economic change? And also, how do we balance the needs of the calibration of digital manufacturing with those of the mess of real construction sites? So all of these kinds of questions that have been bubbling up seem to somehow surround this notion of uncertainty. And so with Smart Geometry, we've been able to organize these workshops to address methods of working in conditions that are inherently unpredictable, whether because of it's an unstructured environment or an ill-defined problem, or because of human and the surprising behavior of individual users. And we've been working at a number of scales, everything from an individual space to a facade to a building to an entire city. And you're going to see some of those examples at the exhibition when you visit it tonight, and of course over the next 2 days. All the gestures we make in the world, all the things we do that we put out into the built environment potentially will last for decades to come, affecting generation after generation. And if we're going to make buildings efficient and work perfectly for the conditions we have now, perhaps we have to also consider more the issues of what happens when the program changes in 2 years, or what if perhaps the environment changes in 20 or 30 years. What then is efficient? What does this mean for when we're designing now? Perhaps the most robust approach is to always acknowledge that we are building with change in mind. And here, technology and the technologies that are coming online today give us opportunities and advantages that we didn't have before, particularly incorporating feedback, adaptive systems, and taking advantage of sensory networks, real-time scanning, and large data sets. All of this, of course, will be fleshed out over the coming 2 days at SG 2013. Today, we've got 4 panels dealing with uncertainty at differing scales. In the morning, we're going to deal with constructing data and the constructing of evolving ecologies. And in the afternoon, we're going to start to look at some of these ideas around construction technologies and the state of the art with the virtual to actual. And finally, then looking a little bit forward to the effects of technology on future culture, looking at open source computing and synthetic biology and a number of interesting new technologies coming online. The first of these panels, Constructing Data, will be chaired by Professor Stephen Gage, As I've said, he's been part of the Bartlett team who's actually developed this year's challenge. Stephen has had a long and illustrious academic and professional career working in government and academic research as well as in private practice. He taught at the AA for 2 decades before coming to the Bartlett in 1993, where he's led Diploma Unit 14, the Bartlett's Interactive Architecture Workshop. He's now the Bartlett's Professor of Innovative Technology and also currently constructing a small adaptive experimental building in North London. And with that, I'll hand over to Stephen Gage. Thank you.